Have you ever felt that despite all your efforts to be a good person, something within you keeps pulling you back, like a whisper in the dark that says, "This isn't all of you"? Maybe it's a flash of anger you thought you'd outgrown, or a secret jealousy that bubbles up when your best friend succeeds. Most of us bury those feelings, thinking they're flaws to hide or weaknesses to overcome. But what if those shadows are not our enemies, but our guides? The famous Swiss psychologist Carl Jung believed that our path to wholeness lies not in ignoring these parts of ourselves, but in meeting them. Facing the hidden, uncomfortable aspects of our psyche, what he called the shadow, is not just brave. It's necessary if we want to live fully and authentically. Welcome to the unfolding journey, where we explore the depth of human consciousness, psychology, and self-realization. If you're here, you're likely seeking more than surface-level self-help. You're looking for something deeper, something transformative. Today, we'll explore Carl Jung's idea of the shadow and why embracing it might just be the most important step you ever take toward becoming whole. Let's begin. Before diving into the shadow itself, we need to understand the man behind the theory. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who founded what we now call analytical psychology. He was once a close collaborator of Sigmund Freud, but their paths diverged due to significant theoretical differences. While Freud focused heavily on the sexual drives and unconscious desires, Jung saw the psyche as a far more expansive, symbolic, and spiritual landscape. Jung believed the human psyche was composed of several layers: the conscious mind, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. At the heart of his work was the idea that psychological health comes from integration, bringing all the fragmented parts of ourselves into harmony. And this is where the concept of the shadow comes in. The shadow is, quite simply, everything within us that we have rejected, denied, or repressed. These are parts of our personality that don't fit with our self-image or social persona. Maybe as a child, you were scolded for being too assertive, so you buried your boldness. Or perhaps you were taught that showing sadness was weak, so you learned to smile through everything. Over time, these unwanted parts of ourselves get pushed into the unconscious. They don't go away, they just go underground. Jung famously wrote, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." In other words, the more we ignore our shadow, the more control it has over us. Here's something most of us don't realize. What we dislike in others often points directly to our own disowned qualities. This psychological projection is one of the shadow's sneakiest tricks. Have you ever found yourself inexplicably irritated by someone who seems arrogant or lazy? It might be that you've disowned your own desire for attention or your own need for rest. The shadow often appears first in the people who bother us most. Jung believed that if we learn to recognize our projections, we can reclaim those hidden parts of ourselves. Rather than seeing others as enemies, we begin to see them as mirrors, reflecting back what we've lost or left behind in ourselves. The persona is the mask we wear, the identity we present to the world. It's our curated self, polite, responsible, competent, likable. But the more we identify with our persona, the more we risk becoming disconnected from our authentic self. For example, someone who identifies as the helper may push aside their own needs and build resentment over time. The more they try to appear selfless, the more their shadow festers with unmet needs, suppressed anger, or unacknowledged pride. Over time, this split can lead to depression, anxiety, addiction, or sudden inexplicable behavior that seems to come out of nowhere. Shadow work is about bridging the gap between who we think we are and who we really are, embracing our complexity, contradictions, and inner contradictions. Jung didn't see the shadow as evil. He saw it as vital, raw, chaotic energy that could be destructive or creative, depending on whether we're willing to face it. So, how do we begin this inner journey? Jung didn't lay out a step-by-step formula, but the process of shadow work can be broken down into a few key practices. Awareness. The first step is noticing our patterns, especially the ones we don't like. Where do we overreact? Where do we judge others harshly? What emotions make us uncomfortable? These clues point us to the shadow. Exploration. Journaling, dream analysis, and therapy are powerful tools for digging deeper. Dreams, in particular, were central to Jung's approach. He believed dreams bypass the ego and speak in symbols from the unconscious. That terrifying monster? It might represent your unexpressed rage. That neglected child? A forgotten part of your soul. Acceptance. Shadow work is not about fixing ourselves. It's about seeing the parts we've ignored and learning to accept them. This can be emotional, even painful, but it's also liberating. As Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Integration. Once we've recognized and accepted these parts, we can bring their energy into our lives in conscious, constructive ways. Maybe that suppressed assertiveness becomes healthy boundary setting. Maybe that buried sadness becomes compassion. The goal is not to become perfect, it's to become whole. In our hyper-curated digital age, we're under immense pressure to perform perfection. Social media encourages us to highlight our best moments, filter our flaws, and brand ourselves with catchy bios and flawless photos. But this comes at a cost. We begin to believe that our worth lies only in what we can show. Our darker moods, failures, insecurities, and doubts get stuffed away, pushed into the digital shadow. But repression always finds a way to erupt, sometimes in anxiety, burnout, or deep disconnection. Facing the shadow is a radical act in today's culture. It says, I am not just what I produce. I am not just what I post. I am messy. I am complex. I have darkness, and that darkness has wisdom. Here's the paradox. The very parts of us we've rejected are often the key to our greatest growth. That anger you've buried? It could be the fuel you need to stand up for yourself. That jealousy you hate feeling? It might reveal what your heart truly desires. That fear you avoid? It may contain your most authentic longing. When we integrate our shadow, we stop being ruled by it. Instead of acting out unconsciously, we begin to choose consciously. We become more compassionate with others because we've met our own darkness. We stop needing to appear perfect and start becoming real. Shadow work isn't something you do once and complete. It's an ongoing process, like peeling an onion. Each layer reveals another. Life has a way of showing us our shadow in new forms as we grow, through relationships, career challenges, losses, and aging. But the reward is profound. A deeper sense of authenticity, emotional resilience, and inner peace. Jung called this process individuation, the unfolding of the true self, the unification of opposites within. By embracing the shadow, we step into the fullness of who we are. Not just the light, but the depth. Not just the pretty parts, but the real ones. So, what part of your shadow is asking to be seen? What emotions, traits, or memories have you hidden away? And what would it feel like to welcome them, to listen, to learn, and to integrate? Meeting the shadow is not easy, but it's one of the most courageous and healing journeys you can undertake. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And to do that, you must walk through the darkness to find the light within it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Carl Jung's vision of personal wholeness. This is the unfolding journey, where we explore the hidden dimensions of the self and the sacred process of becoming. If you found this video insightful or inspiring, give it a like and share it with someone who might need it. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to The Unfolding Journey for more explorations into depth psychology, shadow work, mythology, spirituality, and the human soul. Your journey toward wholeness begins here. Until next time, stay curious and keep unfolding.